I didn't even start editing any of my first crochet video. Already starting to record the second one as I'm putting on my crochet sweater. It's because your girl is on her last length of the crochet squares. I'm only gonna grab a handful so I don't make myself angry. We are on our last hit, meaning we are on the finale. This part both excites me and it actually doesn't make me sad. I'm actually more excited to finish this than it is a sad ending of a project. Make sure the yarn is like good for me to show because I don't want to untangle my projects like I always do. I'm trying to show y'all what we're working with. I am so happy with the progress, you guys. Look, shut the fuck up. I'm so happy how the pattern is going. It's perfectly that quilt vibe that I'm going for, where there's a random assortment of color rather than an obvious pattern going on. I wanted that from the beginning, that this project was going to be one of the more colorful things I've ever done to this date. I actually wanted to make this video a little bit more interesting. As I'll be working on this blanket, I'll be spilling some tea. I'm going to talk about why I've been single the past almost 3 years. At the end of November, I forgot what date exactly, that marks the 3rd official year. Pretty cool. I officially, or not officially, but I was always trying to be romantically involved with someone ever since I was 13 years old. From there, the longest time I was single was probably a year, and that was after my 6-year relationship. Before the 6-year relationship, I was single probably like 3 months max. Really wasn't ever alone much growing up. You know, throughout my whole healing lessons, and I've talked about this in my other videos, there's a reason why that was. Something that I do want to mention is that I have a lot of Libra in my chart. I also have a Libra Chiron, and Chiron shows your wounded healer. Actually not a surprise that basically all my life lessons centered around the relationships I had in my life. Romantic, familial, friends, all of it. They were all learning lessons so far. I don't doubt that the situationships and situations in general between the time so far also correlates to those lessons. So we're gonna get right into it. I'm not trying to talk about these guys in a way of shading them at all. I've grown past it. I've done lots of forgiving for myself for the most part. I've had to write letters of forgiveness to really impactful heartbreaks or situations, and it's just honoring a lot of that. But I do want to just talk about it as a fun type of thing. When was the last time I really spilled some tea about my life? I share some things here and there, I do. I don't ever actually state what's going on. Now that so much time has passed, I highly doubt any of them follow or watch me. Let's talk about it. If you were romantically involved with me and you're watching me right now, I just want to say one thing. I'm surprised. Because one thing about me, you guys, and my journey of being single, I'm the queen of getting ghosted. Ghosted. Let me prepare my crochet first so I know what I'm working with, and then go ahead and get a little bit comfier as well. As you can tell, the pillow is over here and I'm like just randomly on the side of the bed. Wait, I don't want the yarn to be tangled while I do the work. To be honest, y'all, I did actually do a first recording of this earlier, but with how much I was blabbing and not really getting to the point, I ended up making a written draft again. If you're wondering how I have a seamless flow of what I want to say, it's because I write drafts before. It keeps me centered on what my point is, because something about me, I'll talk. I know how to talk. Sometimes when I do, it takes like 5 years to get to the point. So I'm like, what was I actually trying to say and all that? My earlier YouTube doing that, free balling, let me put the camera right in front of me and just what I want to say. That was fine, but that's why my videos are very long in my earlier videos. It's because, first of all, no editing skills and just straight go off, queen. Handy dandy. We're gonna refer to all these guys as their zodiac signs. There are some that are double, but I know the rising signs of those doubles. It all started in November 2021. My relationship with my ex by this time, rocky and very neglectful. It honestly started becoming neglectful around June, but we broke up in November. Any affection was nice. The first person I will talk about, we're gonna call Pisces. It was basically right after the breakup. By the time I was going through the breakup, I was already mentally gone. Like, this was just kind of like the final nail in the coffin type of thing. Of course, I was initially sad. I mean, we just signed a full year lease together in the beginning of November. When we broke up in November, we're like, fuck. It was a 3-bedroom and we lived with one other person at the time. Just gonna make it work like that anyways. Living with a partner during a breakup is not something new to me, so I thought I could do it again. Felt a little detached after a couple days. The first initial days were of course sad. After a moment of realizing he wasn't a friend to me really, by that time it just didn't feel like there was much to hold on to. The other roommate we had at the time was my best friend at the time, and he was single. Not necessarily wingman because we never really were, but it was more like we supported each other after the fact. Whenever we would hang out with those people, we would just like talk tea, laugh about it, encourage each other. Any attention I had at this time was so welcome. During my relationship, I was transitioning physically. That was the moment where I weighed 160 pounds and then I didn't weigh that anymore. It was during that relationship. Lost 50 pounds within our relationship. Usually a healthy relationship, that would be a great thing. A partner is doing really great for their lives and doing great for themselves. Wouldn't that be a great motivator for both of us to do the same thing? But no, it sparked a lot of jealousy within him. Because of that, that's why our relationship became neglectful. Like, the more I felt good and looked good, the more he would stop mentioning anything about how I looked. He would stop mentioning anything to praise me about. He didn't want to tell me I was doing good at anything anymore. And mind you, he wasn't shy on telling me what I was good at when we started dating. The switch up was crazy after I started to feel good about myself. After we broke up, I was really excited about all the attention I was getting, especially through being out there on social media, having an OnlyFans. That kind of attention was nice, but also just like praises that, you know, I looked good. There had been someone I worked with a little bit on and off during the COVID times. And when I say on and off, the restaurants didn't know to really fully open sometimes. So we'd be in and out of like, okay, we're allowed to work. A couple weeks goes by, okay, we're not allowed to work that much. So it was like, I worked in a restaurant during that weird time. Just someone who's really nice, really attractive. He's just someone I remembered when I became single again. We followed each other on Instagram. I saw one day that he had posted he worked at a bar. My friend and I wanted to find bars to go to and look at. It ended up being the wrong bar, but he told me which one he worked at. The DMs led from one thing to another. He was someone who also saw me in a little bit of a chubbier state. When he saw me now, he really praised it. We eventually had a date soon after. We hit it off really well. So used to such a neglectful connection. The things he really said to me got to me. Our association probably lasted about total 4 to 5 months. We only saw each other 5 times. 2 times was the first 2 days we really actually hung out and met. First hangout was so cute. I thought he was actually someone I could get along with. He filled my head saying like, oh yeah, I have like easy access to book a hotel. I'm gonna book a hotel for us tomorrow. We'll hang out for the full day. That's gonna be on Sunday. I am gonna go out tomorrow night because we hung out on Friday. Sunday, like it's just gonna be us. I got really excited about that. Sunday comes around, I don't even hear from him. I hang out with my friends. I want to get this out of my head because I don't want to be like hung up over a guy. He messages me, are you ready? He picks me up and here I am still anticipating that we are still going to a hotel. But then we go to a pho place, we're eating there. He's like, oh, I'm so hungover right now. He's saying, yeah, the hotel's not happening. He needs more sleep for work the next day. Weirded out by it. I was like, what the fuck? Why would you say something and not even try to make it happen? At the time in my life, because I was so used to neglect anyways and empty promises from people, I just kind of let it be. I barely know this guy. I don't want to like have all these expectations of him anyways. I don't hear from him. Didn't feel much too surprised because there was already such an energy shift. Kind of didn't mind the initial ghosting. I was like, okay, whatever. Hear from him again after 2 weeks. And for some reason, I think at that point in my life, I was just losing more and more connections. Him coming back felt like that. Like, oh, he's coming back. And when we talked again, I thought we were gonna hang out. I was gonna hear about why I didn't hear from him, or I was just gonna hear about anything. I didn't even question him about the ghosting. I just showed him that I was excited to see him. That time, we only ended up having another casual hangout for another couple hours, dropped me off back home. This time, I thought maybe I might take some initiative to have conversation. I should come out of my comfort zone and see how that works. Or so I thought that was my comfort zone, to not be the one reaching out, when that literally is my comfort zone, to be the one reaching out. I made the conversation to see, you know, are we gonna be talking casually at all? I ended up talking casually for like 1 day. I don't hear from him again for a week. Made me sad too. During our pho hangout, he was mentioning that we could go watch a movie that was coming out. So I brought it up in the text about the movie. He mentions that he went to go see it with his friends. And I was like, okay. This guy really is not like serious about anything he says to me. Doesn't reply to my next thing. A month goes by. By this time, I'm a little bit sad. Even the people on the dating apps weren't giving me any vibes. Completely focus on my social media, my OnlyFans, my content. Boss mode, let me just focus on getting money for myself at this point. Hearing from him a third time caught me by surprise, and I remember this moment so fucking clearly because it's low-key embarrassing for me. I put a question out on my Instagram story when you can like put questions and then people can answer it. I think I just asked people what they were doing. He randomly, from not hearing from him for a month, he randomly messages on there basically asking like to hang out again. It caught me by surprise again. I was feeling really neglectful in the house I was in. It just felt like it was getting worse and worse for me in there. It was hard for me to make new friends. I was just going through a lot of transitions. He brought excitement to me at the time. This time we talked, and we were talking actually a little bit more. The vibe feels a little bit different. Then he mentions that he's gonna bring a joint, and then we're gonna talk more. This starts to excite me. Noticing some changes within myself. Maybe he's also going through some changes. Maybe this is gonna be a little bit different the third time, especially because it was gonna be at my house. The reason why I felt like it was fine to hang out at mine, despite my ex living there, was because he brought like a girl there within a week after the breakup. Mind you, I truly wasn't like sad about that, low-key excited for him. Kind of brought me into like an I don't give a fuck either. It was almost like I was waiting to see who's gonna do that first. I thought because it was gonna be at mine, it was gonna be a little bit of a bigger deal, but that bigger deal was only mindful for me. We put on a movie. I'm literally so scarred. I'm never gonna watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith ever again. First and last time ever watching that movie. Casually talking, cuddling just a little bit, intimate moment, yes, calling myself out, sure, and we cuddle just a little bit. Happens again. When we separate this time, it's so awkward because he's like physically putting space between us. Right when the movie finishes, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go now. I literally remember being like, what is this to you? He's like, just some fun. Remember the way that he answered it, just so simple like that, really crushed me. Wow. All this time and it was just some fun to you. Why did you have to say anything like that? Like, see, the part that got me about this connection, I would have been fine with it being so casual, strictly sexual. I would have been fine with that if I really knew that's where it was going. And yes, I know I could have spoke up about it, but remember, my self-worth be really low. Letting the guy define the connection, which usually fucking happened back then. Me wanting the connection so bad that I let the other person set the tone. I would just kind of follow it, even if it meant being so neglectful on my part. Them always get the benefit no matter what it did to me, as long as I had a connection, right? We didn't even smoke the joint. He looked so uncomfortable after I asked him about that I didn't even want to like talk about this more. He literally was like, I thought you knew what this was. That part annoys me a lot. Sure, we were both in the wrong then, no? Here I am assuming that we're gonna make a connection out of this for some reason. And then here he is assuming that I never thought we were serious at all. So many people can relate to being on one way or the other. But you know what really fixes that? The communication in the beginning. Being real in the beginning. If you don't know what you want with a person, don't try to have someone in your life. If you don't know what you want with a person, it's okay to be alone for a bit to figure that out. Since he mentioned the joint, I genuinely thought he wanted to chill and talk this time, so I was also heartbroken about that he didn't even want to like just casually talk to me. And I have to give it to him, you know, he never actually ever said he liked me. He never said he wanted anything more. Really showed actual interest to me. A lot of interest to my body, not anything else. I was blinded by just like some sort of attention. I was pretty sad for the next couple of days. Honestly, it kind of broke my pride a little bit. After he left, I know my ex heard me cry about it. Whatever. This is actually going to be a pause on Pisces. I know, you're like, wait, why is it a pause? This ending I thought was going to be our final meet. How confrontational and intense it finally was for once. Real. Turned me off from wanting to talk to anybody else for a little while. I didn't even really want to talk to anybody. I was just in a sad girl mode, just wanting to process it, build more money, working away my feelings and sad. It worked for a bit. Which leads me to the next person. I just want to remind, there is a pause on Pisces, but I don't know why I'm making it sound so dramatic. It's not like our actual ending was any more tea. I thought it was actually over, but in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't quite over just yet. In the meantime, when things had ended between us, weeks went by. One of my friends at the time casually introduced me to her friend while we went to go for sushi in Toronto. We are going to refer to him as Aquarius. Since this was a quick blurb about Pisces specifically, I want to mention the lesson I learned from this. I never really had the experience of being in an on and off thing before. It wasn't like a screaming match on and off thing. This was just a pull at your heartstrings emotional thing. It just felt so, all I wanted was just attention. Not in just a superficial way of, oh, look at my body. It was genuine, like, it was actually, I just really wanted someone there for me. I was projecting that on him a lot. Someone to see my transition, applaud it, see what I was actually doing, learning about entrepreneur, because at this time, entrepreneurship was new, brand new for me. My biggest risk to go all in on it. That was the lesson in itself. Really see and spot superficial connections. Like, do I want to keep entertaining that? Prior to getting into my recent relationship, the year I was single after being in my 6-year relationship, that was like my hoe phase. Let myself have no boundaries. After my relationship, it was kind of like a reminder, like, do you want that? Do you still want to entertain really casual flings like that? Does it satisfy you? Is that something you want right now? Even though I was mentally ready for the breakup, it was still the fact that I didn't fully process what that relationship itself did to me. The breakup itself wasn't traumatic or sad. The relationship, especially the last 6 months of it, was fucked. I dated him for 1.5 years. First year was fine. The last 6 months was fucking crazy. Never processed that. I guess if I'm trying to look at it from, you know, a bigger picture, my connection with Pisces, and also to use astrology, what that was being reflected. Oh my God, I'm totally gonna do that. What Pisces was reflecting to me, tap into my spirituality. He wasn't a spiritual person, but Pisces itself is that energy to dive into your psyche so deeply. Pisces is more like, I need to feel everything about my psyche. I need to feel all the experiences. Why Pisces are super sensitive. Their natural strength is to be in a constant state of feeling. Always feel like they're stuck in their mind, stuck in their daydreams. So in a sense, I can't fully blame him for talking what he did to me. When we were in a cute moment, it felt like that was something to say. I'm just making excuses, but I can understand how some of that daydream energy projected onto me. I also did that to him. As much as maybe he was seeing me one way, I was hoping for the connection to also be one way. That reflective lesson was to tap into my spirituality. I was really learning about what spirituality was. Next thing you know, the first person I meet was a Pisces. I see it in that way. It's kind of fucking cool. I'm grateful though. He was definitely the last person I let like in and out. I never let someone be like that after that again. We love that. We love learning lessons. I crocheted 4 squares. I like that. I was talking during it. We're bringing it close and comfy. I think this is actually much better for me to also showcase the blanket, be comfortable. Other angle made me feel like I had to really enunciate, even though the room isn't that much bigger or farther that way. It's cute like this. Let's continue on with Aquarius. Upon meeting him at the restaurant, I didn't even think we'd hang out again so soon or actually ever really meet again. I did double check with her on the way back home to Hamilton if she was interested in him. I was catching a vibe. Wanted to double check my friend was into him or not, and she totally family zoned him. She's like, no, he's totally a brother to me. I never saw him that way. Okay, well, she sounds really confident about that. True. Like I said, I wasn't really looking forward to seeing him again. It's just a cute question to ask. During this time, I went to my brother's in Toronto a couple days a week to get a refresher out of the house I was living in. This became a routine of ours for about a month. By the 3rd week, I just felt a little bit bored. I was really grateful that my brother let me use his car during the time he was working because he was a full-time manager, so I would just drop him off type of vibe, pick him up. On a really nice hot day, I didn't want to go on a dating app to find someone to hang out with, which low-key was an option. I didn't want to do that, so I randomly thought of asking to hang out with Aquarius. I didn't have his number, I didn't have any of his socials, but I asked my friend if she could ask for me if he would be down to hang out with a stranger. I didn't even really have expectations on what I wanted to do. It was just I was down for anything. Next thing you know, she tells me it's a rare day off for him and he's down. Oh shit, all right. It's in the stars for us to hang out. Cool. Being a manager at a restaurant, he knew of low-key places to go. So we went to one of those, or I think it was one of those. We tried to go to one and then we ended up at a nice one. But it was also giving low-key vibes and still really cool. The conversation between us felt easy. Without too much detail, and long story short, I blacked out, I puked on him, I got in trouble with my brother. Yet he still wanted to hang out the next day. While we were hanging out when we were meeting, he asked if I wanted to go to karaoke with him and his friends after their shift the next day. Loving karaoke and wanting to meet new people, I was already down. I said yes to it. But I was surprised that he still wanted to hang out after puking on him. In a romantic sense, even though we were getting along, I wanted to keep my guard up because Pisces still felt so recent. Genuinely didn't want to see everyone as someone I was gonna have a romantic thing with. But after just a good couple nights and hearing someone say they liked me, it got me. I didn't hear someone say they liked me since my ex. Felt good. I thought because he said that, he wanted something, to at least start building something. After one more weekend, I never saw him again. Around the middle of April, a few friends and I were going to a cottage for another friend's birthday. I already felt an energy shift going into that weekend. While at the cottage, I felt like the Wi-Fi would be spotty, but I did get a text message from my mom that night. Never got a text message from him the whole weekend. Already feeling like I was getting ghosted, I just assumed that was what was happening. A lot of the fears and sadness from the recent ghosting definitely plagued my thoughts. It got worse with the drinking, especially worse the day the group and I decided to do shrooms. It was all fun and games until shit got emotionally serious in my head. That was the least of what was worrying me that moment. I was definitely going through a lot more things concerning money and the living situation. When I did voice my fears about Aquarius to the friend that introduced us, she was so quick to be like, yeah, end things, do it. Without saying why. I should have seen that as a red flag. I even asked her why and she wouldn't tell me. Fast forward to the end of the trip, I texted him when we got back into the city. I mentioned how there could have been potential service disruptions, but that I received a text from my mom and not him, so I just assumed that we weren't talking that weekend. I wrote that I still wish to hear from him soon, see him soon. That was on a Sunday. I didn't hear back from him until Tuesday night when he called me randomly. He was just being so vague and ominous in the call. He's like, I have to talk to you in person. There's something I have to tell you. I can't tell you over the phone though. And then he hangs up. That Thursday, I go to Toronto with my brother. I tell him that I'm there, but I don't hear anything back from him until following Sunday. He calls me. I can tell he's pretty distraught, upset. Tells me that he's going through a lot, that he doesn't have room to have this connection. He just feels very overwhelmed with everything in his life right now. He wanted to end things between us, and that I was cool. I think I can't ever forget how simple he just literally was like, you're cool. I was sad but accepting. I even was like, you don't even want to be friends? And he said no. True. I was pretty upset about it for the next couple days, but I truly understood, coming from that kind of point of view, I don't want to force a connection with someone, especially if there's really no room for me. Next couple weeks, I asked our mutual friend about him, just wondering if he's okay. Still worried me as just human. Hearing that someone was so burnt out and distraught like that, I just wanted to see how he was doing. And one day, she spends a full day with me. By the end of April, going into May, I didn't really have any other friends except her. By the end of the night, while I'm putting my dishes away, she comes to the kitchen with me. Her other friend picks her up, is on the way to pick her up. He comes in. She comes into the kitchen talking to me while our other friend is kind of in the living room chilling. She's like, how do you feel about Aquarius still? And I'm like, that's so interesting because we didn't talk about him all day, and right before you leave, you bringing him up. But again, I wasn't thinking of it like that when she was telling me. Told her in truth, feel like we still have unfinished business. It'd be really nice to talk to him again. Right away, she's like, he's dating someone. I remember as I was putting the dishes away, so shocked that I froze with dishes in hand. And I didn't really know how to process that because I was just in disbelief. I was like, what the fuck do you mean he's dating? He just told me he has no room for that. My mind just started fucking spinning. I just started putting the dishes away. I just couldn't even focus on anything but just trying to normalize myself. She literally stopped me, turned me around till I could face her, and all I could do was just cry. Stood there and cried for 5 minutes. I just didn't even know what to do except cry. She took me into my room so we could just talk a little bit more depthly about it. Putting two and two together and just only being with my own thoughts, I feel like while I was at the cottage, there was someone else. And that was what he was trying to tell me on Tuesday, but didn't know how. Just ended up being his girlfriend. She was telling me they didn't know how they ended up with someone else. She said she was also blindsided to that. I don't know if that's true to this day, but to this day, that's still what I think what happened. It was very soul crushing. It hurt more than finding out I was getting cheated on. I don't know why that hurt more. Just to hear it wasn't me that they wanted at all romantically, that type of rejection was like, why didn't you just fucking tell me the truth? Having to deal with my own mind and my own stories and just being stuck with that for a year. This took a lot to get over for me. I think it was because all I was left with was my own thoughts of rejection, not feeling enough. While things ended and before finding out he was dating, while I was still talking about him sometimes with my friend, she called me out at one point saying, you sound like you're just putting him on a pedestal. But all I remembered saying was I appreciated how good of a leader I thought he was, wanting to care about people so much and wanting to care about doing well. I could relate to that in a really beautiful way. This connection, because she called me out for putting him on a pedestal, it actually reflected why don't I see myself that way? Why don't I see myself as the leader I want to be, the person who got it all together, is so responsible and just taking a lead in their life after having such a crazy one. As we were getting to know each other, Aquarius and I, there was so many stories he was telling me where I was like, did we live the same fucking life? Obviously in different cities. That part got to me. I was just like, wow, we are really similar. This is the first time I actually saw myself in another person, in another gender, had a romantic interest in. It was such a weird thing to see myself like that, and not in a way of trauma dumping, because the way that my ex and I got together, we related to each other a lot through trauma. This time with Aquarius, it was someone I related to on like growth type of way. Biggest lesson between us, all the things I was seeing in him, the potential of us, the person who I thought he was, which was honestly me projecting a lot of myself in him, I feel like, now that I'm looking back. And, you know, I also still see, I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, that was just all me. You know, I still saw those qualities in him too. Limerence and daydreams. I have to be so real. When I opened up to him about my struggles and what I was going through, all I wanted at the time was just to hear reassurance and comfort that, yes, I'm on a scary path and that I'm doing okay, but he was also just another person to tell me what I'm doing at that time wasn't right, that I should do other things in the meantime while trying to do what I was doing. So basically not believing in me. He wasn't someone who believed in what I was doing. That, you know, idealize someone like that. I'm grateful. The connections right after him were definitely horror hookup stories. I actually decided that one of these crochet videos, I will share my my very memorable and horrible hookup stories. Yes, within the 2 years, but also just throughout my life. Throughout my life, there's just been like a lot of moments where I was like, fuck. Especially that year of hoe phasing, that year of neglect on myself was mirrored heavily through the people I chose to hook up with. No shade to those people, completely no shade. All of them were like, girl, really? It's because there was not even like mutual affections, intellectual conversation giving. I was just desperate for some. I showed. Talk about that one day. Stay tuned for for that story. That one's gonna be really funny to talk about. It's gonna be calling myself out the whole time. I have no shame to the stories. They don't even mean anything to me anymore. If any of them were like, oh my god, did you do that? Did you hook up with that? I'm like, yeah, I did. It adds to my character. Oh, real quickly, the reason why I said to pause on Pisces is because I'm actually going to finish off with here. As things had freshly ended with Aquarius, guess who hit me up? Pisces. At this point, we hadn't seen each other for 2 months. Such a interesting timing, because I was like, how did you fucking know that I'm not even fucking seeing anyone anymore? That was so crazy that you fucking could just tell. I wasn't out here posting anything about Aquarius. I wasn't out here posting anything about Pisces either. I saw him for the 5th time. This time, actually, we spent the most time together. We spent a lot of time just talking before intimacy. After intimacy, we were talking, and that part surprised me. Don't mind the kitty. She's in heat. She's literally in heat. Do you hear that? That's literally me every time Pisces came around. Just in heat. Yeah. I feel you. Okay. It got me for a second. Did he change as much as I have changed? A quick moment where I was thinking that while I was with him. Very suddenly, after the second intimacy, he just got really cold, not cuddling anymore, not talking anymore. This is when I finally was just like, okay, what are we doing? What is this? He's just like casual hangouts, friends with benefits vibe. That's not something I want. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. When I drove home that day, like, I felt so empowered by shutting it down, because I literally told him, I was like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. I deserve someone who wants to be there for me and with me consistently and wants to get to know me. I don't want to do anything friends with benefit vibes anymore. And he's like, I understand. I'm just not at that place right now. And I'm like, I didn't expect that from you. After seeing today, it showed me that I just don't want to be someone you can call anymore though. I felt a tinge of me feel bad for saying that, but as I was driving home, I didn't even cry. I felt fucking good. That's when I knew. I was like, oh my god, she grew. The whole thing with Aquarius was probably a month long. Having that, knowing my worth a little bit more, my experience with Pisces in general, I was like, yeah, girl, I'm standing up for myself right fucking now. This ends right now. You might be fine, but that doesn't mean I just keep coming back to you just because I'm also free as well. This makes me feel bad. Every time we finished hanging out, I felt bad. Like I felt like shit. I didn't feel good. Yeah, that heat of the moment of us hanging out felt nice, but as soon as I got home, I felt like shit. This is not something I want to keep doing to myself over and over and over again. Between me and Pisces, that was like 5 months. When everything ended with Pisces and Aquarius, end of May in 2022, just to start June 2022, that will begin one of my hookup stories that I just was like, fuck. Just complete fuck. Next association romantically with someone wasn't actually until the following August 2023, a full year and a little bit of months before being romantically involved with someone again. Yeah, let's just say she was scarred for a little bit. When I say it took me a while to get over Aquarius and just like finding my self-worth in general, especially through the fucking random hookups I was having in between, I needed a pause. I needed a big pause. I'm on the part of relining the inside. It's not that pokeable hole layer. It's a cool process. I weirdly thought this was gonna be a little bit more complicated. When something is done the first time, you definitely underestimate yourself and overestimate the work, but once you do it, you're like, oh, here's my reminder to just do it. Whatever it is, just do it. Getting on to the next person I met was in October 2022. By September 2022, I stopped living in my car. I felt a comfortable vibe with the roommate I had and where I was sleeping. In October, I deleted all the dating apps again. I was actually getting prepared to do my first ever collab through OnlyFans. Then I get a DM on TikTok from Taurus. We're talking over the next few days. We're getting along very well. I actually tell him about my little dilemma, not really wanting to go into a connection and not being really open to it because I want to do this collab, but at the same time, he was piquing my interest. The collab was set to come up really fast in the next couple weeks. He was about to fly to Toronto type of vibe. I had to make my decision. I wanted to meet Taurus in person and then just see how we got along from there. I ended up canceling the collab, totally going towards this guy. He lived 45 minutes away from me. He saw me 5 times a week for a month straight. That was like the first time I ever really saw someone put an effort to me like that. For once, it was nice to not be the one driving to them. He bought me groceries. Every time we hung out, we ate food. Coming out of my homeless journey, so I was like, yes, please feed me. Nice to feel supported in terms of food. And now that I'm realizing it in a Taurus fashion, that was such a Taurus love language, to make sure I really had food. Food I liked as well. Our physical chemistry was pretty heavy. The funny catch was that he was the youngest person I ever was with. Youngest only by a year. It still felt weird in the back of my mind. I just don't want to feel like the dominant one in the relationship. Low-key, my age being older, I was like, I don't like it. What made me end it though, because I ended the connection, after a month, I noticed that we weren't really talking about anything. I was trying to get to know him, but that wasn't being reciprocated. He would talk about a living situation dynamic and what it would be like so fast. I could already tell he was just expecting kind of a housewife type of vibe, never really asking what I was into at all. It felt like he just wanted a connection. He came home to food and fucking. for lack of a better word. Sorry to sound so vulgar. This one time when we were hanging out at a view, or I think it could have even just been at a parking lot, I saw a shooting star. So fucking cool. And I was sharing, I was like, holy fuck, I just saw a shooting star. And he was just like, no, you didn't. The instant reaction to not believe me really threw me off. I didn't feel like my magic was safe with him. One illusion fell after another. By the end of month 2, I really saw that we didn't have anything in common, especially energy level wise. Y'all, during our walks, he would ask me to walk slower. That's a red flag. I don't even walk that fast. I'm 5'2". How much faster can I walk? Whenever we would talk on the phone, he would just always talk about his work, but it was just not something. I knew he liked the work he did as a mechanic, but I knew he didn't like his actual job, the place he was, the people he was around. It's so dreadful because he would just complain all the time, and I'm just someone who cannot stand constant complaining like that. Boy, today was just boring. Today was fine. Same old, same old. I hate that. I hate that so much. That's just not for me. I'm sorry. And then whenever I would try to like be excited about my stuff, talk about me because clearly I'm happy and things are going well for me, you just like change the subject so fast. I did not appreciate that. I didn't like the settling feeling at all. Ready to just, oh yeah, we're good. We're good with what we have right now. I did not fucking like that. As soon as I really started to feel that, I ended it. It was just such a toxic ending. Like, he wouldn't leave me alone, so I actually had to block him. It was just an overall funny learning lesson of risking a relationship over an expansion of my career. I truly think at the time, I just wasn't ready to be seen more. Very self-conscious. I was going through the whole like, oh, but what are people gonna think? What if I just never get into another relationship? That was one of my biggest worries. I was like, if I do a collab, no one's gonna want to date me. That deterred me from a collab for a long time. I just thought I just wouldn't be desirable after that. It was fair for me to have those fears. I feel like those are common fears if you want to stick with the matrix stuff or whatever. It definitely still didn't make me feel good. I always still wondered about the collab. As soon as this ended, I felt so bad to message the guy that I was about to collab with and be like, so that relationship didn't work out. And right away, it was so sweet because he was like, so do you want to collab then? We attempted to try to collab like 3 different times and I canceled every single time. The first time he asked was because like I just freshly became single and I just didn't feel ready. That was the second time. And then there was another time, but I canceled it because I was just like in a period of being homeless and not knowing like where I was at and where I was gonna be. It just didn't feel like aligned. I'd never collabed with that guy. The next relationship was my first ever collab as well, and we're gonna get into that one next. My next association romantically, this ended about end of November. There's something about end of November for me. Fuck. And I just told myself that I wanted to be celibate. I actually didn't want to do any dating apps. I didn't want to try to find anyone else. I genuinely wanted to see myself celibate for once. This is when I switched Tinder for crochet. Beautiful, beautiful self-healing time. There was even like a little article, CBC reporter, about it to highlight like there's so many good reasons of you getting into new crafts. And some people straight need therapy for it. That was also part of mine. Like I needed something therapeutic and calming before bed instead of scrolling people's faces. I celibate for almost 6 months. It was like 5 months. Fast forward to a hookup story that I'm not gonna talk about this is next time. Had sex with someone. It was definitely just a random type of thing. Then there was another random type of thing months later. And at that point, 2 months after that was when I got into the next connection. So the next connection started in August 2023. Yeah, almost the whole year till the next one. I was going through a lot of changes during this time of just reevaluating who I want in my life. This is when I actually started to feel like, oh yeah, I'm allowed to have my own standards. And I can set boundaries, right? That's when this was starting to begin, like truly for me. That's why there was a good pause. Oh, Taurus. I actually thought, maybe I repeated this. I thought this part was gonna be pretty tedious, but it's actually really relaxing. Knowing I don't have to add more parts. We're gonna go straight into my first ever connection with another Leo. It's funny because before this, I always told myself, because my brother's also a Leo, that I was like, I can only be the only Leo in the relationship. I know what it's like to have like too many Leos in one dynamic. We don't limit ourselves just because of the zodiacs. We're gonna refer to this Leo as Cancer rising. There will be another Leo after this one. It's hard to be confident to actually call this a romantic relationship. It was definitely a relationship of some sort. He just made it very clear on the third day that I was there, just because he said he was interested in me and that he wanted to help me out with some place to stay, it didn't mean that eyes and effort were only for me. He made it very clear that he was talking to other people and very much wanted to stick with that. But I had just flown from Toronto to North Carolina to his house. I felt completely stuck and trapped in that. As I was going there, we were talking for a little bit. Just in my mind back then, I just thought if we had mutual interest in each other, that would be enough to initiate something, build something. And I thought he was like as into me as I was into him. The help and everything was really fast because I was leaving the Go Spa. I stayed there for like a month. Obviously wasn't financially sustainable. It was a blessing that we actually started talking while I was there. I was not talking to anybody. Friend-wise, I wasn't talking to anybody at all. I went on TikTok live every night at the spa because I just wanted to talk to somebody. I guess it was also really fast in my perspective. You know, I can't just blame him. It was my fault for also taking the risk to going to his really fast. The preface that I didn't have to worry about rent or too many financial things, didn't even consider how I would be treated. All I thought about was a place to stay and where I could build again. During this time, I was making money. It's just I wasn't able to save it because of the spa. For that reason alone, I just really wanted a place where I could save my money. I'm grateful that he offered fast help after hearing about my situation. He was really the only one who was offering me help at that time. A place to stay and not making me feel like I had to do anything to have a place to stay. Before we talked during that time, we knew of each other for a year through OnlyFans and like Twitter community of ex-workers. Knowing I only had 3 months till my passport expired, I went for it anyways. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just see what happens to me within this 3 months. This is all I can bet on right now. This is all I can see for myself. I just ended up dealing with whatever the flow was in the house. I didn't want to get kicked out. My mindset was I could deal with this until I leave to Canada. So tired of moving around at that point. I just basically wanted to settle somewhere. Despite knowing there was nothing to build romantically, I still wanted a connection. I remember asking him almost every week if he had any questions for me, if he wanted to get to know me at all, or if all we're gonna do is just talk about him, talk about his issues, talk about only his family, talk about only his interests, his vision, his sadness. Like, fuck. I had no strength and no boundaries. When I would be upset that it wasn't being reciprocated, I was just like, okay, fine. And I just sulk on my own, calling myself out, but I just settled for a physical connection. I was like, if we're gonna have any fucking connection and it's gonna be at least mutual, it seems like the physical affection is at least there. Every other time when we weren't being intimate, he was always on his phone. When I say always on his phone, I don't remember seeing a time other than him sleeping that he wasn't on his phone. Even when we were watching a movie, on his phone. If he was showing me something, on his phone. If we just finished having sex, on his phone. Y'all, he would literally get up right after and then look on his phone. Like not even like 2 minutes after. Your phone is that fucking important, hey? Because I knew I was already there on a time limit, I didn't want to constantly get checked down there, an STI check. I asked him, okay, I know you're talking to other people. Well, that's not gonna stop, but can you at least have sex only with me during this time while I'm here? I'm from Canada. I'm not like, I don't have an American health thing going on, and I don't have $500 to dish out every time to get checked because he wants to be a whore. I literally was like, only me for 3 months with sex. Fucking have all the phone sex you want, but physically just me, okay? Out of respect as well. I felt like that was understood. I already knew how shitty my end of the stick was with just fucking only having someone to physically connect with and not care about anything else about me, even though I was literally living with the guy. After a week, he was impulsive in that decision to help me out. For the first little bit, it was so fucking awkward for me to also be there. Not only was he telling me, well, you just have to deal with the fact that I'm already talking to other people and I'm going to continue talking to other people, but also I kind of regret inviting you here because you're really in my space. I'm just used to having my own space. It sucked. It sucked for me knowing I wasn't welcome. Like, I was like, fuck, why am I here? This sucks. If it wasn't for money, trust me, I would be gone. But sucks. I feel bad that you would feel bad for kicking me out on the street. So shit. I just hated that there was so many times during my homeless journey that when I was at these people's houses that they invited me to, they would make me feel bad. Oh wait, I didn't actually plan to actually have someone in the house. You're taking up too much space. I don't actually like you here, but I feel bad because I invited you and I don't want you on the street because I would look bad if I kicked you out. So I just have to deal with this shit. You know how many times I felt that in my homeless journey? So to feel that with this situation as well, it fucking sucked. Not only did you not want me romantically, you actually didn't want me there. Oh, fuck, sorry, I'm here. A month after I was set to leave, I was starting to feel our dynamic change in the physical department. He was saying no to it. He was making excuses. I noticed the behavior change and I decided to just strictly observe. In this, obvious suspicions started. It absolutely sucked feeling insecure about someone who kept telling you that they didn't want you and they didn't want anything with you. One day, after an intimate moment, he took a nap and I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was fucking off. For a week and a bit, he was being a little bit weird on being intimate. And then all of a sudden, there was this one day he was just like so into it. And I felt weird about that. Like, why are you so into this all of a sudden? When he fell asleep, mind you, I really don't default into looking through phones. I really don't. Because that's not only is it just like, you know, suspicious, but you'll always find something to hurt your feelings regardless. You know, at the end of the day, what you do on your phone is up to you. But every time I've had like a really strong suspicion to the point where I couldn't sleep and then I checked the phone, every time I checked the phone in that moment, I was always right about being cheated on. I had the same suspicion. I didn't have this suspicion since my ex. Fuck. Okay, let me just see what this fucking is about. The worst is that I get my feelings hurt. I looked through his Apple Watch, actually, kind of cuddled like this, so I could kind of like go through his phone like this. Sneaky tactics, I know. I wasn't gonna like actually go on his actual phone. When I went through his messages on his Apple Watch, there was this girl I went straight for in conversation because, real disclaimer before telling what happened. A month before feeling suspicious, I had booked us an Airbnb to do our collab at. My first ever collaboration. I wanted it to be aesthetically pleasing. For me, if I'm gonna put myself out there like that, I want it exactly how I want it. Effort, like I didn't want my first collab in the X-work industry to be just like on the bed that you always see me on and just like dirty. I genuinely wanted to have like a script. I wanted to have a whole thing. I planned all of that. I booked the Airbnb myself. That was partly a thank you for him having me there, for him helping me get there. Don't worry, I got the Airbnb. The Airbnb was $300, okay? I was so excited for that day. It felt like a creative opening for me. At this point, I was seeing my spicy content as a true artistic form. This felt like an expansion of that. I was so excited. As I was on his phone, I was directing him, or I was on his phone for some reason. He showed me his phone. He gave me his phone himself. But then I see a message drop down from this girl and she's literally like, come over tonight. I'm so excited to see you. It's the first time I actually saw a message of him texting someone else. Clearly I knew that was happening, but to actually see what they were talking about and like that invitation, it made me feel like, have you been seeing them this whole time? What have you been talking about behind my back? I thought we were getting closer. And this was actually after he said, I love you to me. Fucking really did something to me. Seeing that message, I was like, you said you love me? But then there's this girl asking you to come over on the same day that we're doing this thing. Fucking crushed me. Fuck off. The drive was like 40 minutes long and I saw this text message like 10 minutes into the drive for half an hour straight. I was like, how the fuck can I have sex with someone after finding out this? When I saw that, I showed him. I was like, oh, she asked you to come over tonight. And he like grabbed the phone so fast. He was like, well, we don't have to do the content. We don't have to do the collaboration anymore. I was like, I didn't even bring any of that up. Why are you fucking getting defensive? Clearly you have so much to hide. I didn't bring anything up to like cancel and stuff like that. So you clearly are fucking guilty for so many things. On that day, it was the first time I ever felt like an actual ex worker. That was the first time I've ever had ex with someone, and I really didn't want to, but I felt like I had to. Like in terms of like a job. In terms of ex working, I never actually fucked someone else for work, ever. All my ex working was online. To feel that way after, and it just like broke my heart. That was when I knew I had to detach from that guy. They never stopped talking. My suspicions automatically went to her. No shade to her, like she was in his life before I even got there. I'm gonna be mad at her. She probably doesn't even fucking know I was there. I went to her text message and I didn't expect to see what I did. I honestly expected to see like sexting. He actually already booked a hotel room for them on a day that I was still there. It was supposed to be a day where he went out of town for work, and then they were gonna meet up on his way back. And then what, come back to me? Yeah, that pissed me off. That pissed me off so bad. They were getting into detail what they were trying to do. Not to like TMI myself or anything, but we were recently exploring something new in terms of that area, and he was talking excitedly about that with her. It actually felt like I was literally like exciting him only for him to show excitement to someone else. You know? I felt the most disrespected I ever felt in my whole fucking love life. I've been cheated on. That whole thing with the Aquarius guy happened, but that moment was straight disrespect. Couldn't even wait a couple more weeks. She lives here. She lives here, and you couldn't wait a couple more weeks. That day, I recently made an online friend. I texted him, do you have a place for me to stay? He said yes. I booked the ticket that night to come to where I am right now. It happened all in one day, all in a span of a couple hours, because the disrespect was so fucking crazy for me that I couldn't even stand to look at him. I couldn't even stand the thought of being around him. When he saw that I was leaving, that changed so much for him. It actually changed so much to the point where I was even debating on canceling my flight. My flight was 5 days out. Those 5 days were him really trying to like spend quality time with me. That was like the less I ever saw him on his phone. No, that's just so manipulative. Do the most after someone made it clear they're done. You clearly have the capacity to do what they've been asking the whole time, but because they're leaving, you're gonna do it. Manipulation. Near the end, the amount of times he was literally like, oh, I wished I put a baby in you. You're such a good mom. I didn't want to include this much in this story, but he has a son. Cannot deal with seeing neglected kids. It bothers me so fucking much to see a kid without love. I gave that kid love. I was the only female in that house. So imagine that. I was the one giving that feminine, loving nature to this little 2-year-old. I know you didn't ask me to, but here I am taking care of your son, and you're fucking disrespecting the fuck out of me. Okay, true. Still love his son. I truly feel like I was actually meant to meet his son. To preface like our bond, this little 2-year-old ran up to hug me. First moment I stepped into his room just to say hi. I wanted to say hi without his dad being there. His dad was sleeping. I wanted to like introduce myself. The way that he hugged me, both of us needed that hug. Even though I felt so neglected with Cancer rising, his son was like the highlight. His son was like a really good reason I was there. One of the reasons why I feel like I was meant to meet his son is because his son, to me, I think has a unique name. I've never met anyone with his name. But the reason why I felt it was special was because I actually wrote a children's book. I wrote a children's book a year ago before meeting them. One of the characters' names that I used for the dad was the same name as this little 2-year-old. What are the fucking chances? I thought it was so unique that I used that name for the story. I was searching up names and stuff like that. I was like, what pops out to me? That name popped out to me. And you're telling me I'm meeting someone This little 2-year-old with that name got me. It was a children's book that I was writing with his name in it. Whoa. I was meant to meet his son for sure. The blessing. His son was the blessing for me. He was really hard to leave for me, his son. I knew like I wasn't meant to take care of him like that. I wasn't meant to be his mom in that way. At that point, I really needed to learn to leave people who say they love me but do the exact opposite. The story of my life. People who tell me they love me, tell me they care, and then their actions are very much neglectful, rejecting, abandoning. But as long as you say it's love, right? It's fine. No, it's not fucking fine. That's why I don't believe a lot of people's words anymore. I knew that if I canceled my flight, I'd be choosing him over me. There was no way that me staying there was for me at all. I needed to keep choosing me that year. The whole 2023, I was breaking away from people telling me that they care but would treat me horribly. An example is like people offering me their house and then regretting it and then like showing me that they regretted it right after. How is that caring about someone? No, truly, how is that caring about someone? To make them feel like, oh fuck, you're actually the problem. Shit, why did I bring you here? No matter if I lost the house and risked sleeping outside again, I just didn't care. I had to keep choosing me. I forgot to mention this in Aquarius, Taurus, and Leo, but I want to mention since I did for Pisces and I'm an astrology girl, lessons and mirroring I felt was reflected based on just their astrology sign. For Aquarius, I feel like the biggest lesson I could learn from that was just owning my uniqueness, not conforming, no matter if other people were telling me to conform. Aquarius is the symbol of rebellion, individualistic thinking in a collective community, knowing how to have your own thoughts and brain in a community. It's so easy to just like have that herd mentality of like, oh, I want to fit in. I don't want to be ashamed. I don't want to be shamed out. I don't want to be exiled. So I have to like think like everybody else. Aquarius is a symbol to be like, I'm not doing that. Even though he was telling me to do that, meeting him showed me not to do that. Really interesting in itself because in his own life, from what I was seeing of him, he was rebelling in his own way. He had people telling him to do this and that, and he was like, no. Actually pretty funny for him to tell me to also follow other people's words, even though he was adamant on not doing that himself. Isn't that funny how projection works? With Taurus, learning lesson, I could also see this as a reflection of my dad in a fucking weird psychology way. My dad's a Taurus. Taurus's shadow is settling, straight settling. Every Taurus I've known, if they're not trying to evolve themselves, what I've seen, I could tell you're fucking bored. Yeah, sure, you want your stability, routine life, have that be controlled, but I can tell you're fucking bored. And that's not for me. Their Taurus strength is routine. Routine is important as well. But too much of that for control is just straight boring for someone like me who has so much fire and air in them. Routine is not fucking fun for me. Sure, I need it, and it is something I actually learned to have recently that like built me up. It's part of, you know, building your vision. Month after month doing the same shit, you're not gonna find me doing that. Fuck no. It was something like Taurus, like being with him. I could tell he was very much okay with his routine and he wanted me to be in his routine. No. I'm sorry, Taurus friends. I wouldn't mind going to your guys' houses. We wouldn't be the ones checking in on each other every day type vibe. We'd be okay with that. I see how it's also important, routine. I'm not gonna shade that. But that was a learning lesson for me. It was also to see what kind of routine I was in at the time and seeing if it served me. At the time, I needed more routine, but where I was getting into routine of was needed, and I did value that. With Leo, the lesson of Leo is straight up ego reflection, self-expression reflection. When Leos come into your life, that's exactly what it is. When people feel like their egos always get tested around Leos, that's because that's meant to happen. Leos are the sign of ego and ego development. That's why when I say there can only be one Leo in a relationship, that's what I mean. There can only be one intense energy that reflects that. They're also doing it with themselves. It's not like you know why Leos are always overachieving? A Leo that's in their own lane is always competing with themselves. They are the sign of the sun. The sun is only competing with their own energy. The sun knows it can wipe out literally everyone else's energy. So that's why they can only compete with themselves. But an unevolved Leo will always compete with other people. That's literally how I felt with this Leo. Because we were both doing OnlyFans, it low-key felt like he was competing with me, even though I was seeing it in a view of collaboration. If we do all these collaborations together in the meantime while I live with you, we could be building each other up. But he was seeing me as competition at the same time. It sucked. No, there could only be one of us. Fuck off. The one of us thing sucked because it was like only his problems mattered, only his point of view mattered, only that. And I see how in the past I projected like that. So that was a learning lesson for myself as well. In my 6-year relationship, I can definitely see how I did that a lot. What about me? What about me? What about me? Because my 6-year relationship was with a Scorpio. So he definitely was just like, Choo, let me think about this. Let's get into why it could be about you. With another Leo, it was definitely like, oh yeah, I definitely see how I was doing that. But in that moment, because I only saw him doing that, I was like, fuck off. Leaving that connection reminded me of my confidence. While I was with him, I lost a little bit of my confidence. He wasn't validating anything. Whenever I'd show him my creations, whenever I'd show him my excitement, he just wouldn't care. Be like, oh, it's just another fucking day of you being excited. It wasn't special. I never felt special around him, and that pissed me off. Why is absolutely everything a competition to a point where even my romantic relationships are seeing me like that too? I just want to show other people what I'm doing because I'm working on it. That's it. I'm not showing you because I think I'm better than you. I'm not showing you because I know this is the only way. I'm showing you strictly because I'm working on it. That's it. I also want to see what you're working on. I also want to see what you're putting time into. But this is what I'm putting time into. Can't I show that to the people in my life? Why is it a competition after that? That's pissing me off. After him, he was my last straw to have someone competitive in my life in terms of a romantic connection, because I can spot that. My recent ex was like that. He competed with me, physically fucking looking good. This Leo competed with me, you know, entrepreneurship, creativity. He was like, no, I know better. So fucking annoying. Whenever I had pinpoints about marketing or collaboration, he would try to like one up it with his idea. We would never actually do his idea, but we would always do mine because I actually believed in my ideas. Anyways, I actually never talked about him, how I truly felt about the whole situation. After my ex is just the moment where I see myself in this new confident version where I look good, meaning I feel good, meaning the way I am is more bold, more confident, more out there. My first time seeing myself like that instead of that like quiet, shy version, which was before my ex and during my ex. How people receive me now, my heart never changed. I feel like I still want to be someone that wants to lift people up, wants to do things together, wants to feel reciprocated, wants to feel a mutual connection, excitement, love, compassion, understanding, empathy. That's what I want. Everybody else competes with me on the superficial scale. No matter how much I'm giving my heart, they're like, yeah, but you're not giving enough money wise. You're not giving enough material wise. But because you're doing stuff that doesn't give tangible stuff, let me talk down on that. I can never have the sadder story. I can never have the biggest accomplishment. I could never have the low. I could never have the high. I couldn't have anything with these people. If I had the low, that means that their lowest story wasn't enough for them to like stay in that lowness. And if I had the high, that means they didn't have the excuse to achieve what I was achieving. Where the fuck does that leave me? That's why I've stayed like to myself for so long, is because people are always competing with me and it's so fucking annoying. Fuck! Romantic relationships? I'm literally having sex with you and you're competing with me. What's wrong with you, bro? Ew! Okay, I took a shower and chilled. I didn't realize I was holding on to that anger. Right after I finished recording that, I got really shaky. Parts of me were getting numb. When that happens, I'm either very overstimulated or very anxious. Yes, I did have some coffee, so it could have been a little bit of that as well. While I was in the shower, just in that hot water, I never talked about this. I never talked about this story, about him in this way. Realize it's always because I try to like protect his image. When I left North Carolina and came into this state, we still had a lot of like mutual associations. I was still very much in the OnlyFans world. That's so sad for me. And this part with a lighter tone, grateful of what I learned. I'm happy that I came into myself a lot more after all of that. I'm not making this video to dish it that guys out. I'm really just saying what happened. I still wish all of them the best, including him. I actually enjoyed this angle of up close and personal. We finished all of the lining, giving that, you know, quilted blanket. Now I'm doing the border. Grab another whole rainbow yarn. Gonna use the rest of the one I had. Start with other colors, but I had this idea that if I follow along the first layer of the border with the rainbow, lining makes more sense. One row throughout the whole thing. I don't know how much that's gonna take. I also decided to make a little heart for each. I don't know if I mentioned this. I'll repeat it again. I'm gonna make a cute token every time I make a project with the yarn that I use, like a cute little heart ornament. Recently learned, when I say recently, I mean today. I learned a snowflake. Snowflake. This is part of a project that I'm doing as I'm outside the house. When I'm at a cafe, I really can get into editing. Though I do want breaks sometimes. I like to watch videos. During those times, I find it so hard to just watch a video like this. It's so hard for me to do that. Just so used to crocheting to watching videos. A new pattern to specifically do for a new project. I'm outside doing it. I don't want to bring this blanket everywhere. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the heart. I might actually do a few more hearts because this blanket is big. For the cardigan that I made, I also have more yarn for that. Here I wanted to do like another cute edge to it. Having a new interest about charming things up. Pin thing from an antique store. This is so nice. It was $8. I wonder how it's gonna pin onto the crochet. And I really underestimated how it would pin, but it pins so nicely. A heart snake, which does symbolize what I feel I was going through as I was making this blanket. Shedding skin of my heart. Shedding the transforming the layers of my skin. Wait. Transforming the layers of my heart like snake skin. Sounds so much more poetic in my head. I don't fucking know. Maybe I was just put on the spot. I'm like, yeah. Just a quick update. Lining part took a few days. I actually have motivation to finish this blanket now. Not to give it to someone. I'm signing us up for a competition. A little bit less than 3 weeks. Whoa, it's actually my first competition. A competition that wasn't a group project at school. Because I remember doing a competition group project. Who could make the most money in business class? Which my team won. We were selling flowers. Wait, I think we won. I don't remember. I think we were one of the winners though. Now we are in the season of Reno. Yeah, this is the newest, most recent seasons. So much love to my love life. This Leo, meeting him around Christmas time because he was going back to Vegas. So we didn't actually see each other till about 2 to 3-ish weeks from talking. We are going to refer to him sometimes as Leo. But if it gets confusing, Taurus rising. As I was getting over the previous fuckery and getting used to the new city, I just felt like it was comfortable for me to download Bumble. At the time, I wasn't comfortable learning another one, which would have been Hinge. I have that now. Not actively right now, but recently I had that. Though to start between the two that I use of Tinder and Bumble, I was like, I'm just gonna download Bumble because we're not gonna use Tinder no more. Tinder just seems so like immature. I don't know. It's just giving you won't fuck. That was not the vibe I was going for. No more. Learn my lesson of having someone just treat me like a casual fuck, which was the last Leo. Every day I stayed at his house. I felt like a casual fuck. Back to this Leo. Fucking Leos. I really enjoyed the fact that he would send me paragraphs back. I think it felt so long that someone wanted to talk to me so much, or what I thought was so much. Like, one paragraph a day was so much for me. Oh, saying that out loud is so sad. Oh my god. Saying that out loud is so sad. Fuck. We're not crying this early. When we first met, it was at a restaurant. I was actually learning Spanish at the time. I'm a native Spanish speaker. A little bit exciting in that kind of aspect, but over time, he really showed that he was not interested in anything that I was interested in. Honestly, he wasn't even interested to get to know me at all. I remember having many conversations with him as well, asking him, "Are you not curious about me? We talk about you a lot." Every time I would ask him a question, he would just be like, "What about you?" Another reason why our paragraphs were so long was because every time we would ask each other like a question that we could each really get into, we were kind of both Googling questions. So it kind of felt like it didn't feel like actually personal questions to ask. He didn't want me to like get too much into his life, and he definitely didn't care about mine. I thought with the whole Spanish thing, the stars were aligning in some way. It felt exciting at the time. It just felt like I could be patient for it. This was the first time, I think, since Aquarius, I always felt a little bit wary of having someone want to keep their distance from me. It showed me like, you really don't want to fuck with me, so like what's the point? Wary. I was like, okay, I really just don't want that situation happen again for myself. When being strung along and letting it happen. It did happen. It definitely did happen. This whole situation, waste of time, fuckery. So 4 months long. I saw him in total about 6 times in those 4 months. He had full control of our time together. Only ever on Sundays. I never saw him any other day. If he had other plans on the Sunday, he would tell me last minute. Fuck me getting excited about it. I was like, oh, it was just only me who wanted to see him. Okay. True. By the time it was Valentine's Day, I already knew the connection felt weird. Inconsistency was throwing me off. So I knew that I wanted to dive deep into the self-love on Valentine's Day. That day is actually my favorite holiday. I don't give a fuck what anybody says about it, the history or whatever. I'm just such a love person. So of course it's my favorite holiday. I'm just really upset that I've always relied on just like another person to make it special for me, knowing that it's been my favorite holiday ever since I was like 11. I didn't expect to see him. I think that day landed on like a Wednesday. Made sure to keep busy to distract myself. It was the first time I ever made and bought a bouquet for myself. I went to this cute cafe that was a florist shop. Really cute to just have a hot drink and chill there for a little bit and just watch people get bouquets, make arrangements, get coffee. It was a vibe. The only reason why I never really went back to it is because it's not a vibe to just like work in for me. It felt like a novelty cute thing specific for flowers. Oh, here's some coffee, I'll grab it. It wasn't giving. The interior was cute as fuck, specifically because of the music. No music at all. And then the second half, it was just like elevator music. What he did do on that day for me though was texted me happy Valentine's Day in the afternoon. That was all he texted that day. I should have seen that as the first sign, to be fucking real. Of course, I thought I'd choose the understanding route. He's a student. It was a Wednesday. The queen of making excuses for people. Back then, I didn't mind the whole suffering in silence thing to keep the peace. Ew. 3rd month, I did ask him for quality time, more of an emotional connection. I thought that was also the perfect chance for him to peace. But no, I believed him when he said he would try more. Why do people say things they don't mean? This was everybody in Reno. But anyways, from that conversation, there proceeds to be like more distance between our conversations. Here I was thinking one a day wasn't really sufficing anymore by month 3. We weren't really talking at all throughout the week. The distance was so obvious. This was just another obvious sign to call myself out. I guess I could be a little bit past the whole kiss and tell thing because this was in the past and this was part of like a huge growth thing for me. Being intimate is a huge growth portion for me. It's gonna be so real, and I know a lot of people can relate to having sex be such an easy thing to do but a hard thing to forget. For me personally, to be so fucking real, yeah, it's just the passion. I'm just letting the heat of the moment get to me and blah 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 blah. But I know a little bit of me would just like hope people would stay because of it. The most vulnerable thing you can do, right? And I love vulnerability. And if you can do that with me, you can do all the other things, right? Programming. So sad. But to continue the story, after the first date, it's also when our intimate moment happened. Said I got really into the heat of moment as well. We never did it ever again. For the 4 months preceding, ever again. 6 times of seeing him, never again. And I did ask him about it after like the 3rd, 4th hangout. And he started saying like, I really loved our time. I'm just so tired. I've just been so tired. Should have seen that as another fucking motherfucking sign. Like that was 3. That was strike 3, bitch. I did 4, but strike 3. By month 4 though, I was actually super fed up, really trying not to see me at all. And I remember I got sick. I normally get sick once a year. It's usually around January. Hate it. Obviously, no one likes being sick. Someone who enjoys being active and doing stuff, I hated it. So when I had OnlyFans, this was still when I was doing a lot of things. He could give less of a fuck. It really hurt my feelings. The moment where he was coming back from Vegas, I thought he would, I just had it in my head that he would want to see me on the Sunday that he came back. Texted the Sunday night. And then he was like, hey, I got back early morning and I started studying right away. Wow, you got back on the Sunday and you didn't even like care to tell me. Okay, it fucking hurts. Really don't consider me in this. Like, what the fuck am I doing here? A whole like wake up call. It's like, fuck these Leos and the disrespect, bro. Fuck. I remember I texted him saying, I don't deserve what I'm getting. I don't deserve someone who's so half-assed. I've brought up to you multiple times of the things I would like for me to feel like more equal in this, and it's just not something you want to put the effort towards. You can tell me all you want, that's what you want to do, but your actions are giving you could give less of a fuck. From there, I didn't hear back from him for a week. I didn't reply for a couple days. That's just the last of that. Months after, I found out I wasn't the only one. Not from him though. To this day, I still haven't heard anything from him. I don't want to either, trust me. I don't need no closure from that fucker. I deleted him off my socials, off my phone after a week of not talking. I was like, okay, I just got ghosted, true. That's how much I will give someone time if I just randomly don't hear back from you. I'm not someone who's just gonna assume your life got busy after a week. Okay, after a week and we were mid-conversation type vibe, you don't give a fuck. Not someone who's like, oh yeah, I forget to like message my friends all the time. There's that establishment when you're already friends. That's not okay with me when we're just getting to know each other. Explanations are good because I don't want to assume your life as much as I don't want you to assume mine, which people do anyway. I give so much love to the version of me that wanted fuck. I was trying so hard to say this word earlier and I was having a hard time. Okay. Reciprocation. Fuck, I'm doing it again. Reciprocation. I'm not gonna even say it again. That one. You know, since I was young, I had like such trouble saying comfortable, and now I can say it. Now at 28, I can say it. I've had a hard time saying comfortable since I was like fucking preteens. I think my new word is we're not cut. The reflection I could get from this Leo was something that happened I actually won't give him credit though, but I actually left OnlyFans during the time of hanging out with him. Partly the reason why he so weird about me was because he was in university, in medical school. He has to look super professional. He can't have someone who's like social media looks like that. I don't know, I always had that vibe from him that I just like didn't fit like the look of the fucking 9 to 5 professional scene, which is 100% true. I don't fucking want to fit in there. Fuck that place. Respectfully, fuck that place. You're just so fake. Everyone's so fake. Everyone's so burnt out. Everyone's tired. And it's so competitive. It's just unsupportive. Is there a good thing about that kind of... I digress. The lesson would be... I don't even think I crocheted at all while talking about this. I don't think I could have. I got so into the moment. Am I even here right now? Left OnlyFans during this time internally while he was in my sphere. Reflected to focus on my own creations. It's my own life. It almost felt like every time I was meeting a Leo, they reminded me to like really focus on what I was doing in terms of creations, for sure. Actually, not that I'm putting it together. I didn't feel like OnlyFans was doing anything for me creatively anymore. It just felt like people were constantly wanting something from me. It didn't feel like a fair exchange. I feel prettier than $7. Grew out of it as well. Can't say I hated it the whole time. There were a couple years I definitely enjoyed being on OnlyFans. I really did. It's a good experience to like keep me confident, you know? Not solely out of how I looked. People can tell me all day how I look and stuff, but I know how I look. Like I feel pretty like confident in how I look. So I just didn't need that type of validation. I wanted more of like mental stimulation in that field, which is so funny because that's just something that was just such a hit or miss. How can I expect that kind of stimulation in that kind of field? I don't know. At one point I was trying to change the whole scene of what I was doing. A more positive, ethical type of feeling. Just gonna be a seed plant. I don't see myself not doing spicy content. Love taking photos naked, not gonna lie. Also don't want to be part of Pornhub. I'm glad that it pushed me towards my other creativities because that's when I started crocheting again. When I was hanging out with him, I started crocheting again. Learning about my inner child again, actually. I know he himself wasn't motivating me towards anything that I was doing in my own life. He didn't really know me at all. I think with both Leos, because they were just refusing to get to know me, I had to get to know myself. That was basically the lesson I learned from them. Oh, you're not gonna learn me? Fine, I'll learn myself. True. There's so many facets about learning yourself. You think you know yourself and you don't. I still don't think I know myself. Me. After all of this, I still think there's more. Way more. I think I'm low-key scared of my mind a little bit, but we take it one piece at a time, which is why I'm like, there's so much more. Thank you, Leos. Not to say never again, but I do stand by there can only be one of us. Thank you. If there's Leo somewhere else in your chart, that's okay, but 2 Leo suns? No, can only be one, and that's me. Finished all of the blue yarn. It's all around the border. I decided to do an interesting pattern of, I think there's 6 rows here of blue. The other side, there's about 2 or 3 rows right here. On the border of the top and bottom length, shorter width, they only have 1 row of the blue. And I'm planning to just do 1 row of the color for that because I feel like it's already so long. I'm just trying to add more width. I'm just focusing more on that. I want the border to have everything. This is a colorful ass blanket. Like this is a color bomb. I think my next blanket is gonna be a little bit, I don't know. I did have an idea to do a mix of half granny square and then half regular pattern. We'll see. Doing the green part. Doing the same thing, but instead of doing like where 6 blue was, I'm only gonna do 2 or 3 green here. So it'll be like 6 3 6 3 6 3. All just comes to mind as I'm making it. I didn't even plan this before. What am I gonna do with the colors? I had no idea until I literally bought it. That's how you vibe. We're gonna get into Cancer. As during the beginning of the year as well, springtime, March-ish. Honestly, if I'm actually looking back at this connection in general, it kind of seemed like we were each other's rebounds. I was coming from such a neglectful connection. When he was mentioning his past connection, he had such a bitter tone to it. Brought up that it was helpful that she moved away. Like, oh, it seemed like he would have been hung up on her if she was still around. From the start, it was giving lust. Went for it because it's just been so long since I felt like someone was truly giving me that kind of attention. And honestly, sometimes I miss it. It's nice to feel desired like that, especially when you know you be sexy. He was the first person in a while to say all these compliments of just desire and things. And I'm like, wow, it feels so nice to be wanted, even if it's just that way. We could have met right away, but I was sick, which was actually very helpful. I think it was my soul telling me to slow down a little bit. Right from ending it with Leo, I think it only been a week. But I do say the excitement of this rebound really helped me get over Leo. Leo wasn't even someone I was even officially dating or someone I actually got to have, you know, some type of commitment or even genuine, like, healthy attachment towards. It was just nice to have that refresher of be like, don't be so hung up on a wasteman's. I was just stuck on the rejection of it all. From a week leading to when we actually met, it was giving flirty curiosity. Every time we saw each other, it was a spicy thing, but we never actually hung out long. I think the longest time we actually hung out was just like 3 hours. I saw him 3 times over the course of 2 months. In between, he brought up hanging out so much, get me excited about seeing him, and he would just like in the same 10 minutes find an excuse not to hang out. Why'd you even say anything? And it became this point where I confronted him. I was like, why do you keep like bringing up that you're excited to hang out and then you literally change your mind when I say yes? Of calling him out, like, I think it just sparked a whole fucking ghosting thing. Oh yeah, it definitely reminded me of the Pisces situation. I let this guy ghost me. 2 out of the times we hung out was only because I was just like, hey. Every time he did ghost me too, and I started the conversation, I didn't even bring up, oh, so what's up? Until the last moment where I can really get the hint quick about non-committal people. Something about me is that if I bring up conversation 1-2 times after being the last one to text, I will not do it a third time. That's just something about me. You're gonna keep expecting that? You're gonna keep expecting me to chase you? Ew. The last combo we had was me bringing up, is this gonna be a continuous thing? The whole ghosting situation. He was like, oh yeah, sorry, I just don't want to get attached. Why don't y'all be normal? When guys go into situations without any type of self-reflection, and then when the girl actually is just like, oh, he's interested, and then he's like, oh, wait, I didn't mean that, when he's literally doing the most. Okay, just because he didn't say it. But what if he did say some stuff? He's just a downright asshole at that point then, right? I took it really personal when he said he didn't want to get attached, because at that time in my life, I was trying so hard to have any kind of connection. I felt like nobody wanted to get to know me at all because of my material situation. Because I wasn't getting like a daily paycheck where I could tell you, oh yeah, this is where I work, I hate it. I couldn't relate to anyone on just a 9-to-5 society expectation level. I just felt discounted all the time. When we had our conversations, it actually felt like we shared perspectives on a lot of esoteric things. It excited me for him to just say with full, like, take over the full control, be like, yeah, I'm not gonna do this connection because I don't know when you're gonna leave at any moment. And yeah, I also just got really sad. He didn't even want to try to be my friend. I thought we even got along in terms of that. I brought up that conversation and that was the last I heard of him. This was around the end of June. I just gotta say, out of experience, in my opinion, unevolved water signs are the worst at pulling at heartstrings and sharing that natural compassion and empathy. Yes, someone's there for you, someone's here for you, I got you. Just to have that closeness in the heat of the moment. They're more like the cuddly, oh yeah, you're the only one type of girl. Just for what? You look like an octopus getting their prey. The worst part is when they're back to being themselves by themselves, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't mean any of that. It's just something I say. I know it works. That's why when it comes to water signs, especially, I will watch their actions only. Y'all's words don't mean shit. Full offense, I don't give a fuck. Y'all's words don't mean shit. Your actions mean everything. Fire signs too, because fire and water signs be emotional babies. I'm fire sign, I can say that with full confidence. I'm an emotional baby. That's why my actions matter. It's sad, I get along really quick with Cancers, but I end up thinking they actually care enough to stick around. Every single one. The Cancer reflection from this thing, I don't even want to call it a situationship because it really wasn't that. It was a thing. I remember saying that when I was like in junior high and high school. When you were just in the talking phase, we called it things. You having a thing? But the reflection is to be in tune with my actual feelings. The time that I'm associated with them, it's to really show care for my inner world, because every time I do run into a Cancer, it's usually when I'm avoiding my emotions. It's usually when I'm avoiding my inner world. It's usually when I'm being in my avoidant. I find my attachment style, even though it's leaning towards secure in general, which is beautiful, I love that for me. In shadow, in trigger, I definitely have disorganized attachment style. I go into either or. I can go into really anxious attachment style or avoidant, though I do find I lean way more into avoidant than anything. I only get into like a really anxious attachment style when I get into like a limerence type of thing, when I don't see them for a while and then I'm just like start to imagine my own reasons why they're away. That part gets me in trouble. As soon as I snap out of that, I go really far into avoidant. I'm like, girl, why are you even daydreaming about this? Fuck that shit. And then like peace out of it. Don't avoid what you're feeling. I met Cancer at the time when I just was refusing to process Leo. Fuck that hoe. Let me get into under someone else. Get it? I see the pattern. Thank you. That was Cancer. We're on our last yarn now. The yellow is the last color. Oh, this is part of something else. We finished adding on the pink border on top of the green, from the blue, yellow to just encapsulate it all. I'm actually really excited. This is the end. I liked being able to portion out a part of the story with a section of the blanket. It had a finale to its own. Scorpio, I like this little sun moment, is one of the last people that I had a romantic connection with. I'm almost done the blanket. It felt fitting. I gave a cute little update on my love life now when the blanket is done. It's always trying to do something so efficient, but sometimes that just like makes me feel so rushed and pressured. I don't have to do things like that. Record and put this on at the same time. Like, why? It's okay. You guys get to see my mental process as well. I don't have direct procedure with everything I do. Okay, let's get into it. It's attached now. I call this a thing. We matched on Bumble in early July. We were talking for a day. When I woke up in the middle of the night, as per usual, around 3 in the morning, 5 minutes from when I woke up, he messaged me. He messaged me back his reply, but also to ask if I wanted to hang out that day, just later on in the day. sounded urgent about it because he was only there for the weekend, for only 2 more days for a wedding in Truckee. He wanted to make the most of his time. I was down. I wasn't really doing anything that day. Sure, let's hang out. I took the whole being awake and then him messaging as a fun sign. Just go for it. Our conversations didn't have a sexual flirty vibe to it. That felt comfortable to just go on a spontaneous date. He picked me up. We went to a park. We actually sat at the park just right on the grass for a couple hours straight talking, getting to know each other. It felt so nice and such a green flag at the time, and it still is, to be able to talk to me for that long in nature. Just a bonus. It was a huge deal for me because I forgot what it was like to even have someone that curious and interested in me to want to talk to me that long. Before him, wow, I don't even remember the last time I talked to someone that before him. Well, that shows a lot in my growth. I'm not gonna say anything about the guys because that actually shows a lot in my growth alone. Cute. I really used to settle around people who didn't talk to me. Wow, that's fucking crazy. We finished off our hangout with food, good conversations, we had a good time, he dropped me off. I didn't expect to see him again. Since he told me he didn't even live in the state, he actually lived far more east where I am. So I truly didn't expect to see him again. I just took it as, wow, I let myself enjoy a really nice date with someone I just met. I'm not gonna see him again, but I'm gonna own that. Like, I'm just gonna own that excitement. Before, I'd get attached so fast, especially since I thought we had such a nice connection. I would have been so attached. Old me really would have gotten into that. But I was like, I'm gonna let this be what it is. Thank you. Then, the day that he was expected to leave, he actually messaged me, said that he was staying in the area he was staying in for another day with his family. Since he was gonna be in the area longer, would I be down to see him the next day? Yeah, I was down to see him the next day. We hung out in the morning. He was off to a hiking adventure. He was telling me of his hiking trips around the west side still. He were to make a loop back into this area, would I be down to see him a third time? I was just kind of riding the excitement of this, to be honest. It was fun. I said yes. A couple days later, we hung out a third time. Doing this back and forth, it was confusing me in the moment. I remember feeling like I had to ground myself a lot, remind myself not to get attached, remind myself not to hold any expectations of anything for this. After our third hangout and knowing this was going to be our last time, energy shifted. The other 2 times as he was leaving, he's giving a little bit more flirty. Maybe it's because he knew he was planning to see me again. This third time, he was just like not ending it in a flirty way. It kind of already gave me a signal. I was like, okay, already changed behavior. Don't expect anything else. After that day, I remember doing something new. I went to a jiu-jitsu gym just to see what it would be like for me. I went on one of my first evening walks that I ever did. I had a beautiful switch on that walk to kind of see him as my first muse, as a creative inspiration, inspired by a TikTok saying, treat your situationships as a creative inspiration. I thought of that in the moment. It really did something for me. It actually did. I wrote my first poem when we stopped talking. That was such a crazy thing, writing my first poem, because I just never thought I would be someone who wrote poems. Doing that, breaking a limitation creatively after a potential heartbreak if I was still in my old version, it was such a nice switch of myself. But here's where I got in trouble with this connection, and this is actually why I'm bringing it up. Even though that part was beautiful in itself, served as a really positive inspiration, yes, the next part is where the lesson actually came from. A week goes by. Something I'm actually learning in the present moment is that I don't know how to really miss anyone anymore without feeling really sad. When that triggers like a sadness within me, I avoid it altogether. I just stop wanting to miss people because it just makes me sad. That sounds crazy, but that's just something I'm processing like currently. that was a preface for how I didn't know this about myself while the association with him was happening around my birthday. And mind you, during the time of July is just where I hold the most expectations for a lot of things in general, because it's like my birthday month and a traumatizing time. I started to miss him. I reached out. I didn't reach out the first day that I felt like I missed him because I just didn't want to like go off an impulse. I felt like, okay, if I still feel this way the next day, then I genuinely miss the guy. Okay, text him. It doesn't hurt to text him, right? See what happens. Next day comes through, I messaged him. He actually messages me right away. And even though that serves as a good sign for a lot of different things to have, you know, messages come right back right away, I didn't feel good with this one. I instantly felt like, oh shit, he's just trying to get rid of me. I instantly felt that. State my intention. I didn't want to just, you know, beat around the bush while I was messaging him. I got right into it because how he received me was really nice too. It was quick, but it was sweet. I asked if he would be open to having a friend on the west side, just to have someone just to chat with. Who knows if I end up on that side or if he ends up back on this side again, if we want to not hang out in like the way that we were hanging out, which was a little bit of a spicier thing, as a friendly way, genuinely, because when we were talking, I felt like I could get along with him as a friend. He quickly shut it down, saying that he met someone right when he got back. He didn't want to jeopardize anything. It made me feel so instantly rejected. Salt on the wound by saying I was a catalyst to him meeting her. I remember one of the things he said during our conversations was like, I'm really easy to talk to. The conversations we talked about, he mentioned that he would not have mentioned to someone on a date, much less someone he just met, and that he was like telling me the story is really crazy. I've had that kind of feedback a lot. It's just natural for me to get there with people because I have a genuine curiosity of people, to get to know people like that. If the other person is willing, then it's a story to hear. That broke my heart. I didn't know how to handle that at all. Feel like I had anyone to talk to or call. So I posted a story on my Instagram and TikTok. That video went viral. It was one of my first viral videos on that account, but it was such a blessing in disguise. I didn't know how many people, especially girls, women, femmes, that also experienced the exact same thoughts, the exact same feeling, as they were sharing that. But anyways, we're gonna stick with the relationship thing because that video in itself did something for me. That's how I also learned about limerence and how I was stuck there. Because what happened was I missed him, but my mind started to fantasize. It really romanticized everything that we did together. Even though he never said anything about actually wanting a genuine connection or a committed connection of any kind, my mind, because I was missing him, I freaking did this thing where I imagined a whole scene where I felt like our feelings were mutual, maybe romanticizing that he'd come back. That's a bad thing about my romanticization for limerence, is people coming back. That's an inner child wound, big inner child wound. I always wish like my parents came back for me during certain moments of my life. It has a lot to do with that. It's really nice that I got to learn about myself and the ways that like my mind can get me in trouble. Even though I was trying my best not to attach to anything, I ended up attaching to something, which was my fantasy. It's the part that sucked because I don't think I was actually attaching to him at all, but I was attaching to a fantasy that he'd come back and then I would have my next adventure. It's so real for me to say, but so hard for me to admit. But because months passed, I can share that's an honest thought. I don't do that anymore because I don't want someone to save me. I don't want someone to be the reason I get to live, be the reason I'm excited for myself. He was a really harsh but good reminder to remember the love I have for myself and not to put someone else on a pedestal ever again. I'm really grateful that our connection was actually so quick because of how fast I actually felt myself get into it. I think this is why I've actually been single for so long. It's because I do
actually get really distracted with connections. Just want to be loved. I want to be seen. I want to be involved in like people's lives as much as they want to be involved in mine, but that distracts me as of what I'm doing right now in my life. I can see how if none of these guys ghosted me or ended things, I would have really spent a few more months, maybe even a few more years being distracted off of what I'm trying to do right now. In hindsight, in healing, I'm grateful for getting ghosted for 3 years. I'm also grateful that meeting him reminded me of passion. I felt like he was passionate towards me in the small amounts that we were hanging out. I feel emotions are true. What I'm learning is that emotions doesn't mean attachment. And I'm learning that through fucking guys. Obviously, girls get in trouble with this too, the heat of the moment thing. The way I find that girls get into the heat of the moment is that we start to imagine like a story, you know, we imagine them in our lives after. We imagine like the attachment about it. Guys, they enjoy the heat of the moment because it's true, but because it's so real, they'll avoid it entirely after the fact. It's like as soon as you're out of sight, they're like, yeah, I'm just gonna ditch that altogether. What I'm learning, and this is because someone actually told me this recently, a guy, is that they are feeling like the real stuff about the heat of the moment being with the girl, but it's just all of their baggage and shit happens after the fact of your interaction, which is why the switch up happens, which is why the switch up is so real, because they don't want to face the same shit you're facing. Honestly, that's one aspect of it. That's what I would say the Scorpio reflection of it all is, to bring up astrology. Scorpios are one of the signs that have the biggest strength for passion, for like that intensity feeling. It's taking the emotion and then bringing it to 1,000. Like, how can you really like own that? Which is why, you know, with Scorpios, you could get in trouble with the heat of the moment part because of how intense it feels. Lesson. He was a catalyst for my heart too, though, toward my own expansion, especially creatively. Bitch, I wrote a poem. It wasn't about him either. I just want to say, it was actually about my day. My first poem ever was actually about my day. I do want to mention, I don't even hold any hard feelings toward him at all. The other guys, I did have some like hard feelings after. This one, I didn't, because I knew from the start he didn't even live in the same state as me, and I'm just someone who doesn't do long distance, especially at the beginning type of thing. Like, I need to kind of like feel if this would be a connection I want to invest in, right? I knew not to like want to be attached, which is why I kept trying to remind myself over and over, but that inner part of me, subconscious part of me did. I'm not gonna make myself feel bad about that. That had to happen. Includes all the romantic connections thus far. So when I finish the rest of the yellow, I'll give an update if there's anything happening right now.
Here's a close-up of the lining, tying everything together. I know there's still like these spots, but just leave me alone. That's all I can say. Leave me alone. I love it though. Finish the blanket. I'm actually gonna start sleeping with her for now. The other blanket I have is so staticky. I'm gonna enjoy her. It's been a while since I just enjoyed the blanket I made. I gave the last one away, and then the first one I ever made is in Toronto. This is my third blanket. My third queen size blanket. If y'all don't know, I actually plan to continue this forever. Blankets on blankets. I was just touching it earlier. Wow. I made this. I made all of this. This took 4 months. So to conclude this video in all its excitement, I feel like I'm not giving it enough justice because I'm not talking about the blanket by itself enough, but I've mentioned the process of this blanket, the finishing of it in many other videos, other platforms. I actually have talked about it here a lot. Oh, but YouTube, literally there's, I'm not even gonna get into that. As I've mentioned, my relationship update as I finish this blanket, as of today, 10:57 a.m., November 18. Specifically, I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not flirting with anyone. I've never had a roster ever. I'm gonna be technical. The only time I've ever had a roster was with 2 people. And this was like before my ex-boyfriend. So almost 4 years ago. She grew, it's old, that shit's boring. I don't know how people could continue having rosters for more than a year. I feel like having that kind of, immaturity, hoe phase. I feel like if you're curious, go have it, just so you know. That was me. I let myself have that after my 6-year relationship. I was like, okay, let me go do that hoe phase thing. After a year, I felt like the worst I've ever felt of myself. I felt worse than just, oh yeah, let me just fuck around with people. That shit's energetically draining. Since that, I've never had a roster. I even tried to have a roster since moving to Reno. I was like, okay, let me be a new person. I can't. Everyone I've been romantically involved with has just been the one person at a time. But that was not the case for me with those guys, and that's just sad for me. Everybody in Reno had other people they were talking to, and I was like, no wonder why there's no true love here, because you guys don't even take it seriously anyway. I'm not even gonna get into that. Right now, I'm single as fuck. I'm finally okay with it. I can say at the start of this blanket, there was parts of me that I was like, I still yearn to be in a relationship. I still yearn for romance. Now I finish this blanket, I'm like, when you want something for so long and you're not getting it, you could go one or 2 ways of it. Well, you could go multiple ways, but the 2 ways I'm thinking of is you either turn super bitter and you just don't want it at all, which is kind of borderline where I'm at. I'm not too much of the bitter anymore. Can't say that about last week, but the bitterness is leaving. I think it is that. I think it is the fact that I've wanted it for so long, 3 years specifically, and now I'm just so fucking over it. Why am I trying to prove how much love I have to these guys who don't even know how to receive it, much less fucking reciprocate it? Why do I even get so sad over people who can't be what the minimum is for me, which is literally consistent, which is literally honest? But I digress. If that's the bare minimum, consistency and honesty, shit, these guys are down in the gutters for that. Whatever. I'm glad that my standards are where they're at now, and I'm really proud to say this is where they're gonna stay. I'm so fucking tired of putting myself on a bottom shelf when I know how much I create, when I know how much fucking ability to be awesome I am. Why do I care to be validated by like these bums? I don't care anymore. If you're not even trying to be ambitious, imaginative, a leader in your life, why would I want you as a partner? And none of these guys were giving that. It was me showing I can be a leader to them. I can show them this. I can show them a new way. I can show them more energy. I can show them love. Every single guy for the last 3 years was me doing that. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I don't even know what it's like to actually be courted and like receive what I've always wanted ever since I was younger. That fairy tale prince that trudged through the challenges and literally put in the effort to be with me. If you think your hoe phase is valuable, it's not. Didn't see any value when I was doing it. Sure, it fed dopamine hits, it fed instant gratification, but it never fulfilled me. Every time I left that person's place or just stopped hanging out with them, I always felt so much more shittier. Where's the value of treating everybody else like a body? Say maybe I've gotten karma for that for some part of this, like, you know, being single for 3 years, having that year of being a hoe. So I can't imagine for you guys who are treating this hoe phase as like your lifestyle. Karma, 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 karma. Like if you're not even owning up to all the people you've hurt in the past and you want a valuable relationship, that doesn't make sense. Sorry. Good relationship starts with you. Now I finally know that. So fuck all these bare minimum boys and hello to an elevated standard. Thank you to my crochet blanket for reminding me of the love I have for myself and the capabilities, the strength, the fucking power, the divinity that I have for myself. Thank you, blanket, for reminding me that I don't need no bum ass boys to tell me I'm amazing. I just fucking know that. Boom. Thank you for watching this. This was one of my longest videos, but I did not want to do a two-parter for this. I just wanted all one go. Here's some tea. Thank you for listening. There will be more of me spilling tea while I crochet. Girl, my life been crazy. I love you. Bye.